What up, everybody? Don't forget to head over to the website, elliottmarshall.com, where you can get your free tools. Whether you are looking for my badass morning routine or the Mount Instructional, head over to the website. Or if you're on Instagram, click the link in the bio. You'll see that will take you right there. Or website, elliottmarshall.com, free tools. And there you go. What's up, guys? This is former UFC fighter Elliott Marshall, and you are listening to The Blueprint. I believe that there's a blueprint of how the most successful people structure their lives. They don't all do it the same. They don't all do the same things. And on this podcast, you're going to hear inspirations, motivations, and stories about how they go through their life. These stories will give you clues and tricks of exactly how you can discover your passion, find your power, and then go give your purpose to the world. Thank you so much for listening. Let's jump into this week's episode. This episode of the podcast is with Jeremy Lesniak. Jeremy is a traditional martial artist, and he has been studying his entire life. We had a great conversation debating the need for the dispute in the martial arts community and how he has stayed in the martial arts industry without being a school owner. So he has a brand and a company where they sell martial arts product. But yeah, so it was a very interesting topic, both topics that we discussed, because most people that I talk to are school owners. But without further ado, here we go, Jeremy Lesniak. Jeremy, my dude, how are you?
I'm great, Elliot. How are you?
Man, one bald martial artist to another with a beard and everything, right?
That's right. That's right. It's almost part of the uniform, right? I'm sure you've been in rooms with lots of martial artists, and you look and you're like, what is it? What is it about all these high ranks that all the guys are shorn?
I think it's so. I know what it is for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like the old school guys in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we used to, when Jiu-Jitsu was first coming to America, we were in the process of like proving its worth, right? So everything was game other than like groin strikes. Like you couldn't groin strike, you couldn't fish hook and stuff like that, right? But if somebody had long hair, it was
a grab.
Not a problem.
Okay.
So within a couple weeks, everyone had hair at a length that you couldn't grab it. Because not only did it like prohibit you from doing jiu-jitsu, because they would grab your hair, but it fucking hurts when you get your hair pulled, right?
Doubt.
So,
but I grew up in karate circles, so it we don't have that same argument. It just there's something about guys in martial arts that we just don't have hair.
Look, mine left me, so that was not my excuse. Mine left me at a very young age. Yeah. So, all right. You said you grew up in karate circles. What, I did too. So I started martial arts when I was 6 years old in Tang Soo Do Mudokwan. And then it later switched to like Subak Do. So where was your, beginning entry?
Yeah. So I was thrown into martial arts, at 4. And I say thrown in because, do 4-year-olds really have opinions on what they want to do? And it was
that's a bigger question. Do we have opinions now on what we want to do? But anyway,
don't throw that detour out. If you're not, we can probably get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
That's a good one. And I was blessed to grow up with 2 instructors that were married in 2 different styles of karate, Kyokushin and Isshin-Ryu, and learned a whole bunch of stuff. And they set me on this path of see what else is out there.
Okay.
And go to college and just all these sort of detours, as I picked up new stuff and trained with new people and just kept going.
Awesome.
A lot of fun.
Where did, what was the beginning like for you? So how old are you, first of all?
So I'm 43.
Okay. I'll be 43. Are you going to be 44 this year? Or are you going to be?
I turned 44 in a couple months.
All right. What month?
June. I'm a Gemini.
Right. I'm July, so you're about a year ahead of me.
Right.
So we grew up in the 80s with martial arts. I started in 1986. You started in 3 years ahead of me. It sounds like in 83.
83.
So, it was different then, right? Like karate was different in the 80s in America. What was your experience? Yeah, it was rugged.
It was rugged. Even as a kid, it was rugged. And not to say that we were not supervised, and not to say that it was, like some child fight club or something. But the expectations were high. The school I grew up in did not offer a junior black belt. I was 16 when I tested for my black belt, and I was
Oh fuck yeah! I mean, like, look, I got a black belt, but I shouldn't have. But go ahead.
Well, and that's another topic we could get into. I have philosophies on what that means, but I don't talk about specifically what was in the test, other than there is this one anecdote whenever anybody's, oh, well, did you earn it? There was a 350-pound man who literally picked me up and hurled me across the room. And, that gives you an idea. At 16, this is what I was experiencing. But again, it's not like it just came out of nowhere. This was meant to be a test. And so everything leading up to that, it was difficult. I had to hold a horse stance for an hour at 8 for my blue belt. These were difficult experiences. And when I look back, I'm really thankful, not because I'm comparing my experience in martial arts to anybody else's, but because I get to look back on that and say, well, I made it through this. If I could do that, I can do this. If I could do that, I could definitely do this. And it's become a signpost for me in life. And when I hit difficult times, I can reflect, and it gives me some context.
That's what difficult experiences are for, right? They're not for the actual, like, in the moment experience. That sucks.
Right. Type 2 fun, some people call it.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Type 2 fun.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Right. Like, I'm glad I went through that. I'm smiling. I enjoyed the experience, not in the moment, but where it led me to.
Because it's never fun. It's never fun. And I can remember when I was a kid and got my black belt, we had this, you went through an initiation. So after the test and after you passed, you went through this grueling initiation, and it was brutal. People would throw up, and all the other black belts would show up that day and give you some very difficult thing to do. Yeah. That sucked. So, I can remember being very scared and nervous for it.
How old were you?
What's that?
How old were you when you tested?
I was 9.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 9. So the test itself wasn't very hard. The test itself was just perform the techniques. Yeah. The initiation was the very difficult part.
It sounds it. And at 9, how do you contextualize that? How do you understand all that at 9? That was. Oof.
I think I was scared. I think I was just scared. I think I was just very, very afraid. And then I don't know. I don't know. And you went through the same stuff as the adults. Now, obviously, they scaled it a little bit for what a 9-year-old could do versus what an adult could do physically at that time. So, but it was still very, very hard. You were beat to death by the end of it. It didn't matter who you were. I can remember my instructor carrying around like a bamboo stick, and he would hit you with it. And he and it fucking hurt, and it would leave a mark. Yeah, so, this was not the karate that we have now, per se, with some kids where, they're very big money makers. I still love the discipline in some of them, especially the softer ends of karate where it has moved. I'm very interested to see what will happen with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as it ages, because money's a real thing. Right? Money is a very, very real thing for people. Where did, hold on. I want to ask you this question first.
Sure.
Your thoughts on junior black belts? Because jiu-jitsu doesn't do it. You can't get your first belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, your first real belt in jiu-jitsu is blue belt. And you cannot get that until the year of your 16th birthday.
Depends on the school you're talking about.
What's that?
Depends on the school you're talking about.
What do you mean?
I've seen blue belts that are younger than 16.
Not in jiu-jitsu.
Sure, I have.
In Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Where? Where? Yeah.
On the internet.
Okay. So that's the rule that the IBJJF has handed down.
Right. So if you're a school that's not affiliated with the IBJJF, then you do their own things. Right. And that is kind of the heart of my feelings. Like, you do what works for you in your school. I'm going to do what works for me. I encourage other people to do what works for them. It's not apples to apples. right? Every school is different. Every school's curriculum is different. The expectations are different. The reasons people train is different. And I think one of the worst things that we have done in the martial arts community is invest so much time tearing down what other people do.
For example,
you shouldn't be a black belt. Why not? How does that impact you? And people will make an argument to say, well, it waters down and it ruins public perception. You know what ruins public perception more? Infighting.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on the infighting.
Where would martial arts be if over the last 50, 60 years in Western culture, we had been supportive? We wouldn't be losing to soccer. We wouldn't be losing to other after-school activities. If you make a list of all the things that children need in life, the places that public school and often parents are either struggling to or failing to support them in, it's a list of attributes that martial arts has inherently baked in.
I agree.
And so if that is true, why do we not have more participation? Well, for a lot of reasons, but one of them is if the average non-martial artist goes up to the average martial artist and says, I'm thinking about enrolling my kid, where should I train? What's their first response? Oh, you've got to come to my school. Before they even ask them questions about why they want their kid to train, or what times they have available, or where they live, there's still that ego-forward presentation of my school is best, and if you go somewhere else, you're making a mistake. And guess what? People don't like to make mistakes. People would rather make no choice than choose wrong. And this is a situation that we, as a broader martial arts culture, have instilled on the rest of the world.
I'm going to push back just for pushing back's sake.
Go for it.
Just for pushing back's sake. I can't even say I disagree with you, but I love the discussion here. You've seen McDojo Life, right? On Instagram?
Rob was on our show years ago.
Okay. What if the people are teaching that?
So what?
That's not good.
Who gets to decide what is
Okay, hold on. Here, I'll go a better one. I'll go even closer. I'll go closer, okay? I have a friend. He's my friend. I love him. I'm no longer talking shit to him because it's not healthy for me, for example, okay? But some of the shit that he shows is disingenuous.
Sure.
Like, it could actually get people hurt. And they think they're learning self-defense, for example.
So, and I push back on that. We did a whole episode on this. What is the thing that prevents most fights?
Awareness.
Not ends them, but prevents them.
Awareness.
Confidence.
We'll call it the same thing.
Well, it's a little different.
It's a little different.
And the reason I say that is because there have been studies done where they will pull violent criminals and they will show them people walking down the street. And guess what? They all pick the same targets.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
It's the way that they show up. So would I rather someone have no training or terrible training that gives them confidence? I'll pick the terrible training that gives them confidence because it's actually less likely they're going to get into an altercation because they have that confidence. Now, is it false confidence? Sure. But why do I get
that's the lowest hanging fruit, right? Like, so you have confidence, but you could still end up in a situation where, for example, you do have a choice to show real stuff that works.
Sure.
But
it becomes a slippery slope because who gets to decide?
But we could make this argument with everything.
We could. And I'm very much a free market capitalist, libertarian. If you want to go train in this stuff over here that I don't think works, I have no right to tell you that you shouldn't. Now, if you want to show it to me, I have a choice not to do it. If you want to challenge me, I have a choice to accept or not accept. Right?
Right.
The moment we start saying, this is correct, this is not correct, this is right, this is not right, this is good, this is bad, that's where all the problems come from. Because guess what? There are...
Well, of course, but we do that in 1 + 1 is 2. And if we let our kids start saying that 1 + 1 is 3, we start to have a really, really major problem in the world.
Sure. One is objective, though. Math is objective. What is a good or a bad? What is a worthwhile or non-worthwhile?
I'll give you an example. Hold on. No, there's some things that aren't fucking subjective, bro.
Okay.
Getting front choked on a wall like this by an attacker, and sliding your ass down the wall is subjectively and objectively wrong. You will
as a response to that attack?
As a response to that attack. Yeah, of course, right?
Sure.
You are not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I am. We both know that shit ain't gonna fucking work.
Right.
Don't teach that.
Okay. I will agree with you.
Okay.
And I think most people would agree with you. So how do you quote enforce that though? It's
very hard. Yeah, it's very hard.
Impossible.
It's impossible.
It is impossible, and it is a waste of time.
I agree with you. That's why I stopped talking shit to my friends.
Show many, and so this is pretty much one of like two arguments that I have on the internet with people. Most of them I just ignore, but one of them is about what is a black belt, and the other is what is worthwhile training, because everybody trains for different reasons. Right? Some people really care about the self-defense. I've known plenty of people who don't.
Sure.
They train for camaraderie and movement and exercise or whatever. Right?
A whole host of things.
Right. So let's say most people would say, okay, so if there was this objective standard, this board, this governance, and they have this in some countries where we say, okay, this is, if you're going to teach, you've got to come through this program. We have to validate you. We have to verify your curriculum, things like that. Okay, great. But we don't have that here. And if we were to construct that, I don't think it's a secret that there's a lot of politics in martial arts. Guess what? There are plenty of people out there who, even within the BJJ community, have shown that governance doesn't always work well. I bet if you're a BJJ black belt, you know someone that, in your opinion, received their rank far too soon, and someone else who has been pushed around.
Yeah, of course.
And deserved their black belt 10 years ago.
Of course.
Right?
Yes.
That right there, to me, is proof that there is no perfect system. And so if there is no perfect system, then I would rather people just go and do their own thing, because I think modeling better behavior changes a marketplace, in this case, a martial arts landscape, more than the critical side of things.
And you're saying that then if you, I'm going to combine your politics a little bit here.
Sure.
As a free market capitalist, the market will determine who stays in business and who does not stay in business. But what if they're, and I'm still just arguing here.
Yeah.
And this has nothing to do with the blueprint. So if those listeners, Jeremy has gotten us down a tangent that I really am enjoying. So we'll get back to the blueprint in a minute. But I'm really enjoying this conversation. But if there's no, okay, a car, for example. If I say my car can go 0 to 60 in this amount of seconds and this much, all the things that I am claiming my car can do, we can then go test said car to make sure that that is accurate and all of those things. And the car dealership is holding his word. Mm-hmm. Correct?
Yeah.
If there's no battle, which very few of us ever will have, right? Then how do we test the technique? How do we make sure that it actually does work? And I'm not saying you got to be a fucking UFC fighter, right? Like this is not my argument whatsoever. My argument is that you need to be able to defend yourself.
But what if that's not the important part for people?
But it's the product. I think everything else is a byproduct of the product, right? Like so
What's your definition of martial arts?
Martial arts. Mm-hmm. A way. What's that?
Go ahead. A
system of defense.
Okay.
A system of defense is martial arts to me.
So is walking around with two handguns martial arts? Is walking around with two handguns?
No, hand-to-hand combat. Sorry.
Okay. Right. So my definition of martial arts is personal growth through the lens of hand-to-hand combat.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
And if you break down the term martial arts, what's the noun? The noun is art.
Mm-hmm.
It is an art that is martial. It is an art that is combative. The art is the root. The combat is not the root. Self-defense, there's some overlap if we think about it as Venn diagrams, but there is a whole separate side over here, right? Like, I'm assuming you're familiar with Tony Blauer.
Mm-hmm.
Great guy. Tony Blauer teaches self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
He has some martial arts threads that go through him. I actually like him quite a bit. He's been on our show a couple times. Great guy. I trained with him. I think the world of him. But when I think of martial artists, people who are primarily martial artists, that's not Tony. That's self-defense, right? When I think of martial arts and let's say where I might put a kid, I'm thinking of, some schools in my area that they spend the majority of their time coaching that kid to be a better person. And that's what I want for that kid, is that personal growth. And that because it's so subjective.
But this happens in soccer. This happens in basketball. This happens in wrestling. My kids are growing tremendously personally because of the basketball they play. Because hopefully, because they stick with it. It's difficult. There's failure to it. Sure. They have to overcome. So there's a lot of things that are in the personal growth field, that you could do for personal growth. What differentiates the martial art is the self-defense aspect, is the beat your ass aspect. Because there's a lot of things that have community, right? There's a lot of things that have culture. There's a lot of things that but when you say I'm going to go learn to be a martial artist, there's a learn how to fucking fight aspect to that.
So Tai Chi is not a martial art by your definition?
Not if you don't learn how to fight. Nope.
Okay. And that's where our definitions differ.
Okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah. 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 I'm not trying to say you're wrong by any means. I'm trying to.
You know what? Even if you did,
it wouldn't matter, right? We're gonna, you could be like, that was a shitty fucking hour. Fuck that other bald guy.
I enjoy these conversations because unlike a lot of people, unlike most of the internet, right? I have some strong opinions, but I'm willing to put them up on the block for discussion, and I am willing to change my mind.
Ooh, okay.
And it's through conversation that I learn. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I host podcasts. I have for a long time, and I find it a wonderful format for discussion. Just as we didn't expect we were going to start off
not at
here,
all.
but
Right.
but it's interesting, right? And it doesn't mean that we have to come to a consensus and agree before we can move on. We can kind of say, okay, I see your point, and I do see your point, and it's a very valid point, and that's why I don't think my definition needs to be your definition, and I don't see that the way you train needs to be the way I train or everybody else trains. Because when we get bogged down in those discussions of this is the only way, that's where it goes sideways.
Yeah, but we're America, baby. It's America. We want to know what the best is. That's how we've always been, right?
And the best is not only is subjective, but the definitions are different. If we go back to
we
our
can't
analogy, what's the best car?
Look, we can't even agree that Michael Jordan's better than LeBron James, and this is fucking simple, So
that is simple. That is simple. Because nobody made the people on the court next to them better when he was on the court than Michael.
Nobody did it like Michael. No, and they try to say LeBron does it. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
If he had never played with Michael Jordan, Luke Longley would be unknown to everyone.
Unknown. Trash. Absolute trash. Steve Kerr probably wouldn't be the coach of the Golden State Warriors.
No. Exactly.
Scotty
probably wouldn't have made All-Star teams.
He wouldn't be. Scotty made the top fucking 50. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that takes nothing away from any of those guys because they still had to do all of the work too.
Yep.
They had to do all of the work too. And I hate that discussion because LeBron is the second best basketball player we have ever seen. And two, for me, as far as athlete human combination and I don't care about we all make some bad decisions, but what he's done for children, specifically inner city kids, and how many he's going to put more kids through college than me, you, and our whole towns combined.
Yep.
Based on just what he does. And he has no scandals. He's been with the same woman. He goes home every night, to see his kids, and his kids are going to be amazing.
Yeah, there's some scandals. I know people that grew up around him.
Oh, there's some. Well, okay. Well, they have not come out.
Teenagers don't usually have the money for Hummers.
Oh, that's not a scandal. Give me a fucking
pre-signing. Yeah.
Oh, that's not a scandal. I give the man his money. Give the man his money. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. How much money did Sports Illustrated make because they put LeBron James on the cover of it at 17? So, I mean, scandals in like, Tiger Woods.
Sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, the China thing is a scandal. So people get mad about the China thing. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying disagreements, but I'm saying scandals in like, yo, he's a fucked up person. At 17, I would take all the money too if I could. Sure. I probably would now. I'm other than combat sports, I would like to see steroids regulated, for example, and in sports, because I'm tired of seeing somebody dunk from the free throw line. I want to see somebody do it from the free throw line, from the 3-point line. Let's go. We've been, Dr. J did it in like 1981. Fuck it. Come on. We haven't gotten better since then. Let me see it, so, yeah, I'm for all that shit because whatever.
Free choice.
And I know my argument fails when you start saying, how young do you start them on these said steroids to be a better athlete? So, anyway, back to you. You said something a second ago where you said you are willing to quote unquote battle test your ideas.
Yeah.
Where did this start to come for you? Where, like, at what age did this in your life where you're like, oh, I want to see what's up there? And like really go dive in. And I think the key with battle test, and everyone likes to think they battle test their ideas, but it was the next thing that you said, you're willing to change your mind.
Yeah.
Because that's real battle testing, right? Because like you acquire data, like you battle test, you look at results, you acquire the data, you come back and adapt and improve.
It's the martial arts philosophy applied to conversation, right?
Right.
Theoretically, we should be getting better through experimentation. And some of that experimentation in terms of conversation is having discussions, having chats with people about this, that, or the other. And once in a while you get someone, like yourself, where, I get to have a conversation with someone who is intelligent, they're articulate, they actually listen to what I'm saying and respond, as opposed to going, but, right? They're just looking, it's like they're playing double dutch, waiting for the break in my words to step on them and
they have a list of questions right here.
Verbally assault.
They have a list of questions that they answer. They ask you a question, you answer, they look down at their next and ask you the next one. Those are my favorite conversations. But anyway, go ahead.
That's how I started as an interviewer.
Yeah, but you got better. You battle tested, motherfucker.
I did. I absolutely did. So I think it came in from a few things, one of them was martial arts. And this, I was very blessed that the school I grew up in, I told you it was a husband and wife. And if somebody came to visit the school, unless they were like brand new to what they'd been doing elsewhere, I lived in rural Maine, so we had a lot of vacationers, be like, oh, you're a green belt in this other thing? What can you show us? Right? It was this very open atmosphere of let's just Borg everything together, not because we needed to hold on to it, but we needed to experience it. Okay. And I was taught that when we were doing our forms, okay, this is the way we want it done. But when we're sparring, I don't care how you throw that kick. I care that you throw that kick in a way that works for you. So a little bit of modification here or here, whatever. Do what works for you. I did debate in high school. So there was another example because I had to take both positions. I had to be able to understand from both sides of a topic. And I didn't realize until I was probably in my 30s how transformational that was for me. This idea that I had to understand, not just speak, but understand the opposing perspective. And it's something that served me really well. We go back over the last few years now, you see people that were not capable of understanding what other people thought, and it led to just dismantling of families and romantic relationships. And
everything in between, from there to, yes. I mean,
because if you can't carve out the space to say, you know what, I see your opinion, I understand how you got there, let's agree to disagree.
I think this is one of the biggest problems that we've got going on.
Completely agree.
Especially with our leaders and our politicians, going back there, for example, I swear to God that if all of the Democrats came out right now and said they were pro-life, that the Republicans would switch to pro-choice. I am.
I think they'd find a way to move there.
Yeah. Oh, look, it wouldn't be like, okay, no, flip. Like they'd be very smart in how they did it, you know.
Sure.
But I would beg to bet that within a couple of years, couple of months, whatever that everyone's platform would switch, just because, you know, just to fight.
You know, I if you look at. If I'm remembering my timeline correctly, I don't usually publicly discuss politics, but Obama's first term, gay marriage was very unpopular. By the time he ran for his second term, everybody was for it. 4 years.
But gay marriage is unpopular with everyone.
And that's my point. In 4 years, it changed for everyone. Yeah. Because as it started to change with some prominent people talking about it, now everybody needed to get with it. And if you look, if I remember correctly, survey data showed that it correlated, right? It was what did people think?
Yeah. He was against it when he in 08, you know, and then he's the one who passed. It was the end of his term, right? When it passed?
I think so.
Yeah. So, I guess that's not. Is that the example we're using? Because that's kind of everyone shifting. Like even most non-political non-politician Republicans, agree. I think times change for sure.
And that's my point, is that it can shift that quickly.
Yes,
you know, I understand what you're saying.
Sorry.
You're talking about the polarity being maintained.
Yes.
I'm talking about the speed at which that can shift.
Yeah, and I think that's good if it's obvious. You know. I think that's good. And things should be, again, always tested, you know, always tested. We need to be walking into the arena. That's why I have the arena quote behind me, because it reminds me, you know, walking into the arena of our lives to see if this is skillful or unskillful, and then moving from there, you know. I think the part that a lot of us are missing is the moving from there piece. We get very bogged down in our opinions, ideas, like polarizations, you know. Even me, for example, I will admit, I was like, he does karate. Do I want to talk to him? You know, because, and I will agree, in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world, karate is just absolute bullshit, right? Like for most of us, once the UFC came along. And we went through this, and then in the late 90s, early 2000s, we were dojo storming, and like the way that we taught intro classes in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community was we fucking fought. You know, like everyone who came in for an intro class, I can remember being the kid sitting on, you know, the 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid sitting on the wall, waiting for them to learn their, you know, little intro classes, how to tap and mount and yada, yada. And then be like, okay, it's going to be my turn to fight. Let's fucking, all right, let's go. You know, like I can remember this. This is how we did it, to, you know, quote unquote, prove superiority. So yeah, that, you know, so even when I was looking at my list and I was like, no, I'm going to talk to him. You know, I want to hear his opinion. So, but I won't admit it wasn't a thought of mine. So, and I think it's important to what you said, try to change your opinions, you know, and you might have changed mine a little bit. You've made me shift a little bit. I'll give you that.
And and there's nothing perfect. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, if there was a perfect, quote, perfect martial art, it's the only one that would exist.
Oh,
the others would fall away very quickly. Look,
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu went through its thing, right? When the UFC started to be way more striking oriented, because at first, like the Jiu-Jitsu guys killed it. The grapplers killed it. And then it was like, oh shit, Jiu-Jitsu doesn't work. So then we were like, oh yes, it does. And oh yeah, 100%.
It's gone in waves, right?
It goes in waves.
There's a constant evolution to have a skill set and a refinement of a skill set that others are less prepared to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And this is where, you know, the simplistic arguments, you cannot, there is no simple solution to a complex problem. And if we talk about a complex problem as what is the best martial art or how do you win in the UFC, you can't say just. Anytime somebody's solution starts with the word just, I know it's going to be bullshit. Because there is no, oh, you just do this. Just learn BJJ. Okay. So the best BJJ practitioner wins all of their pro MMA fights. No. Okay. Well, all you have to do is punch them in the face. Okay. So the best striker wins all of their fights. Right? Well, every fight goes to the ground. No, not every fight goes to the ground. Well, just take it to the ground. Pavement hurts on your back, right? Like there's a lot of detail in there, and the best of anything is a balance. I've always encouraged people, cross-train, train in a bunch of different stuff. I've done BJJ. I've done judo. I've done a whole bunch of things. I've been training for a long time, and I enjoy it. I enjoy that variety.
When did you
But
shift?
I'm also not I'm not training to be in the ring. So my why dictates how I train.
For sure. Yes. And that's important. I agree with you. When did you move to the business of martial arts a little bit, right? Because it's what you do for a living. So what was that shift like from just being like a practitioner to this is how I want to make my living?
Yeah. So right about 2010, maybe even a few years earlier, you probably remember the foam sparring gear that you grew up with. Mm-hmm. You said you did Tang Soo.
Yeah, it sucked.
It did. And, it continued to suck. In fact, it got worse. And finally, like 2007, 2008, 2009, I'd come home from Taekwondo and I'd have a beer and I'd sit on the internet. It's like, there's got to be somebody else making better stuff out there. Because I had the same experience that everybody had. Like, I'd go buy new sparring gear and it's exciting because it's new and it's shiny. And then within 6 months, it's falling apart. It's like, everything gets better. Why is this getting worse? It didn't make sense to me. So fast forward through some timeline, ended up coming up with my own designs, factory, got some money, and we launched a sparring gear line. And after a couple years of that, I was like, wait a second. Nobody knows who we are. I'm going to events, I'm buying ads, and martial arts has always been really fractured. The BJJ folks, one, they wouldn't need the gear, but trying to reach Taekwondo people and karate people and Tang Soo Do people, it's three different camps. And I never really liked that, but it was the reality. And that's where the podcast came in. And the podcast, I'd say, is we actually celebrated our 800th episode last night. The podcast is really where the company made a massive transition from me slinging sparring gear to now we have this whole ecosystem of events and products and apparel and training programs and content. And so the business side of it it wasn't intentional. I just wanted better sparring gear. But I've joked that someday if I write an autobiography, it'll probably be titled, "Fuck it, I'll do it myself." And that's fine, I'll make this myself.
And then let's see what happens.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So you don't, have you ever owned your own school?
I did briefly.
Okay.
Out of college, I was starting an IT company and I had my own school for a couple years and shut it down because at the end of a long day growing an IT company, I would go to class and I loved teaching and I loved my students. And I noticed that my energy level it was getting worse and worse. And I said, these guys are all really loyal to me, but I'm not going to hold on to them. Bizarrely, we had this town of 5,000 and we had 3 martial arts schools. So I said, they can go train at one of these other places. And so I shut it down. I said, I can't give you 100%. I don't even feel like I'm giving you 50% most days, and you deserve better than that.
Yeah, I mean, what a great realization, because owning your own martial arts school, like there's this thing that you personally, I think there's 3 things with owning your own martial arts school. There's you personally being good at the martial art you're teaching.
Sure.
You personally being a good teacher, and those 2 things do not correlate. Being good at the martial art and being good at teaching the martial art. And I think that's the biggest correlation that most not so well run martial arts school owners make is they're like, oh, I'm good at it, therefore I will teach it well, so that others can digest it who think differently than me, move differently than me, different bodies than me. And then I think the third one is business, right? You have to be able to understand business well. And if you, and none of those three things, not one does not lead to the other, even a little bit.
No. And it's funny you bring up those things, because it's the two that most martial arts school owners struggle with, the teaching and the business side. That's one of the things that we're doing as a brand. You know, we're never going to tell somebody this is how you should kick. This is that you're doing that form wrong. You know, you should add this style to your offerings. You know, that's a deeply personal decision. But the fundamentals of how to teach, those are fairly universal, whether we're talking about martial arts or something else. The fundamentals of business, whether it's martial arts or selling, you know, eggs on the side of the road, they're fairly universal. And they're things that most of us were raised that you earn a certain rank over a certain time, and then you just kind of, life will take you in a direction, you go open your own school, because that's the way most of our instructors started.
Right.
And most of them had a full-time job, and they struggled, and there were plenty of months where they put money back into the school because they didn't have enough students, and they thought that's how it was supposed to be. And we have a whole crop of martial artists today that think that it is how it's supposed to be, that if you're making money teaching, you're a sellout.
Yeah, I vastly disagree with them.
I do as well. If you have something that is of value, and I think there are a few things in life more valuable than martial arts training.
I will agree with you.
It's something that people should have the opportunity to do, and if they don't know about it, or if you're not there, they don't have the opportunity, and that's a shame.
I mean, I go all the way to the other end. I think you're doing a disservice if you cannot create careers for other people in martial arts. Like that's one of our major goals with our academies is the career aspect. Like we don't want to just like look, I'm sitting here talking to you on a podcast, and I'm sure there's some classes going on at one of the schools that I am not teaching, and I'm sure the GMs are probably in a meeting here. It's almost 9:00 where I am, so someone's about to have a meeting, or if they haven't had one already, of people getting the ability and the opportunity to do what they love, what they really love. They don't have to go work some shitty job that they fucking hate. Right. And they love martial arts because I love martial arts, and I don't think I've ever been good at anything the way I've been good at martial arts, and I've been lucky enough to do that for my life, and then try to give that gift and opportunity to anyone else who wants to do it. Nice. You know, anyone else who wants to do it, which I think it's almost a disservice not to make money, because it's a good product. You know, it's an amazing product, martial arts. Like I think you and I both wouldn't even try to disagree on that one. No. So if it's an amazing product, you're doing a disservice if you're not providing it at its best level.
Money creates opportunities.
Yes.
Right. If you're charging adequately, the argument that I have people throw at me is, well, you know, I don't want to charge more than people can afford. You mean you don't want to charge more than that one person can afford? Okay, fine. Scholarship them. Yeah. Make more money and then take that money and give it to that person, so you don't have to go work a full-time job. So unlike me, you can show up and give 100% to your students and provide them the best martial arts education possible, instead of going off to work a different job 9 to 5, 6 days a week. Unless you want to do that. If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. But a lot of people will let their circumstances trap them, and they try to rationalize where they're at because they don't want to put in the work to make those changes.
Yeah, we have plenty of broke people that don't pay, and we have plenty of rich people that fucking pay. And the rich people don't pay more. You know, the rich people pay the price, right? Like the broke people, we help them, you know.
But you're in a position to help them because you charge adequately, and the rich people pay enough.
Yeah, right. And you know, and I will call rich anybody middle class and up that can pay. So, so yeah, you don't have to be a millionaire. But yeah, you need to charge adequately. But then you need to provide the best service as well, right? You need to have a very high quality product, a high quality culture, you know. And I will push here very hardly on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu end of the martial arts world, that I think most schools don't have a great culture. They have this fight culture. They have this your teacher is a god culture, which I think a lot of martial arts schools actually have. But and they have this idea that as you go up in rank, there's less responsibility on you. Mm-hmm. And I believe that there's more responsibility on you. There's more responsibility the closer that you get to, for example, like we have at the 7 schools, we have over 4,000 students. So nice. I cannot be close to all of them, right? That is impossible. But obviously there's going to be some that do get very close to me, just by the nature of what it is. I think more is demanded of them. Mm-hmm. More is demanded of them because I am, the co-owner and one of the leaders. So if you want to be close to me, well, just be aware of what that costs as well. It's not just get really good at the martial art. It's okay, oh shit, I got to show up in a certain way. Right. And I think most cultures, specifically in the jiu-jitsu end, go the opposite way. They go, oh, I get privilege.
And it happens in a lot of places. It's not just martial arts. It happens in, we talked, kind of dipped our toe into politics. We could, wouldn't take much time to look at politics and see, oh, there does seem to be some privilege that occurs with status. That means we don't have to be the best version of ourselves anymore. We can compromise that best version of ourselves. But what you're talking about in BJJ happens in other martial arts as well. I think because BJJ is newer to the US, I think it's that culture is lagging behind a little bit. Mm-hmm. The 60s, 70s, even the 80s, karate, taekwondo, etc., there was a lot of that fight culture. Most schools have gotten rid of that because they realized, oh, this is not what most people want. Mm-hmm. Most people want to come and they want to be able to leave without a broken nose. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to leave without blood all over themselves, having to explain why they're beat to shit tomorrow morning when they go to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's not a good look for very many people.
No.
And I think that the better we can be at recognizing that an open culture, a supportive culture, a friendly culture, regardless of what it is, whether it's martial arts or something else, is beneficial. Right? An open culture could support someone who wants to fight.
Look, it's a numbers game. Mm-hmm. Right? If you limit the amount of people that walk in the door, you are limiting the amount of people that could possibly, quote unquote, as your jiu-jitsu teachers all want, most of them still these days, to be a champion.
Sure.
It's literally a numbers game. If you have more students, you have a way more likelihood of creating a champion out of, let's say, 1,000 students that you might have versus 100 students that you might have. People hear about you. It's very simple, Now look, all 1,000 of your students can't be training to be a champion because they don't fucking want that. You've got to then limit. You've got to be able to have scales for everyone as they move through. But this train a champion thing is still a very big deal in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu circles. And look, I love it too. I can't even fault them. I fucking love it. It's one of my favorite things. So, couple questions here as we end, Jeremy. This one's pretty simple, just because you and I have this bald martial arts connect. But I tend to ask people, and not to toot my horn personally or anything like that, but like this probably won't really do much for your brand or anything like that, right? Like I'm not Joe Rogan, another bald martial artist, where if you got on his podcast, like, maybe your brand blows up, because of the exposure that it would get. Like mine's very small, relatively to his or any other big podcast.
All of our shows are small compared to his.
Right. I mean, look, mine's small to a medium large podcast, right? As most of ours are. Why take the time when you could, work on your podcast or do a host of other things that would bring you a bigger ROI than sitting here talking to me discussing, who should get a black belt?
Because let's unpack that term ROI.
Yeah.
What am I investing? I'm investing time. I'm having an enjoyable conversation right there. I've made a connection with someone that I think, we could probably be friends. There's a return.
Yeah.
I will be inviting you to come on our show. Awesome. Great. There's a return.
Right.
But more importantly, what if there's one person listening to your show who found it through whatever way, and they're feeling stuck or unhappy or challenged about one aspect that we talked about? The idea, maybe they're at a school and they've been questioning if the culture of that school is a fit for them, or the culture of their job is a fit for them. And they think, you know what? I heard Elliot and Jeremy talking, and this is not a fit for me. I'm going to make a change, right? If I could give an hour of my life and check those boxes and help someone better their life, why would I not? Mm-hmm. Now, can I do that 24 hours a day? No, but I'll do it when I can. I don't accept every invitation to come on a show, but I do accept most of them.
The reason
I asked that, you never know where it's going to lead.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is exactly you went right to it. I love to change the idea of what we call an ROI. I think it's very there's many returns, and it's not just funny. It's not just money. It's not just money. So, last question. I believe everyone has this unique gift, that this power that I'm really unconcerned of where you got it. God, the universe, whoever the fuck you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. But I believe we all have one. I believe the cool thing is to be able to figure out what that is and then go give it to the world. And then the world then returns something so great back to you. We were talking about Michael and LeBron for a second. Basketball, right? Like, okay. Ours is not. What do you think your superpower is? What do you think that gift is that you go give to the world?
I've been thinking about that in that context a little bit, because I know what I'm doing is what I am meant to do. But is my superpower, is it as a podcaster? I don't think so. Is it as a martial arts instructor? I don't think so. Two things that I think I'm pretty good at that I also enjoy. But I think where I'm starting to land is that I have an ability to see the world a little differently than most. My entire professional life has been filled with doing things that people said were not possible. When I started whistlekick, it was, don't do that. That's not going to work. And still, I even, consultants will pop up once in a while, and I'll have people evaluate things, and they're like, this isn't going to work. Well, I can show you the books. It's working. It's not... Are we,
I'm not working at Walmart, motherfucker.
I admit it publicly. We're not yet profitable. We're getting there.
Right.
But we've put some things in place that could not have gone any other way. And, I mentioned we recorded our 800th episode last night, and when we did it live, and there were a bunch of people, there were probably 24 people in the chat that I knew personally, that I've only known because of the work that we've done, that I've done. And I know that for every one of them, their life has been changed a little bit, that they've found their community. And, it's no secret that most people feel a sense of loneliness that was not there 20, 30, 50 years ago. People have fewer friends than they used to. And I can't change that for everyone. But what we've built is something that resonates for a large portion of the martial arts community. And so for them, I can change that. I can give people those bonds, events to come to, conversations to listen in on, aka a podcast, and hopefully better their life even a little bit. Because for some people, that little bit of betterment is all they need to have to keep from taking their life, for example. And so if I have a superpower, it's the realization that is of value, that is possible, and a willingness to bang my head against the wall indefinitely while I do it.
I'm stubborn like that too, with the bang my head against the wall until it fucking works thing. My wife gets mad at me because as soon as I figure out how to make it work, I hire somebody else to do it, and then I go try to do it somewhere else. And she's like, when does this fucking stop? And I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't.
It doesn't, because that's how it should be.
Yeah, it doesn't. I was like, I don't plan on retiring. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry. So anyway, Jeremy, man, thanks for coming on. Tell everyone where they can find out about whistlekick. Tell everyone where they can, get more of you, your podcast, all that stuff.
Sure. So if you search whistlekick anywhere, you're going to find us. Whistlekick.com is our online home. We're at whistlekick on all the social media. Our podcast is Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, and you should be able to find that on any podcast platform. Most of our episodes are also in video, and you can find those on YouTube. And I even do a morning show weekdays streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. First Cup with Jeremy.
All right.
6:30 a.m. Eastern.
First Cup. What's that one about? Is it about martial arts or is it about First Cup?
Yeah,
right.
It's basically me sitting there drinking a cup of coffee or tea and the audience, and we just kind of talk about martial arts and life, and it's less about training. It's more philosophical.
Got it. Awesome. Love it. All right. Thanks for coming on, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, as always, Jeremy has his unique power, his gift that he goes and gives to the world. And I have mine, that I do my thing. Don't go out in the world and try to be Jeremy. Don't go out in the world and try to be me. Everyone, please go out there and find your own power. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found something useful that you can take and implement into your life. Don't forget to head over to wherever you are listening to this podcast and leave a review. That would be greatly appreciated. Also, go follow me on social media at FireMarshal205 on Instagram. Leave a comment, anything that you would like there. And as always, if you think this would be useful for somebody else that you know for their life, send it their way. That would be greatly appreciated. That's it for this episode, guys. I hope you all have a great day and you go step into that power so that you can give your purpose to the world.